From Valerie Marvin, our frequent guest, what's new with the Historical Society of Greater Lansing? You've got upcoming events we need to know about?
Oh, we only have 4 things this month.
You guys are so busy.
We may have had a conversation the other day as to what's the saturation point.
Right. But there's none apparently because everybody shows up.
Well, we're getting good responses.
You are.
This Saturday, we are going to be kicking off our summer walking tour program. On Saturday, we will be actually here at LCC over in the Arts and Sciences building. Professor David Swick is going to be giving a talk on the development of Lansing Community College, a little bit about how it was established and who some of the power players were early on. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going to actually go outside and walk around the campus and talk more both about the history, about the sort of evolving footprint, if you will, how Lansing Community College has grown from one building to a whole sort of mini neighborhood in downtown. And we're also going to talk a lot about the art installations that have gone in over the last year, which have really changed campus, really brightened it up. The interesting thing about LCC is it started off as completely utilitarian. It was in the old Lansing High School, which was actually built in the 1870s and then dramatically remodeled in the 1920s. And when Sexton High School opened, what had been Lansing High School, Lansing Central as it was now called, became sort of a trade school, if you will. In fact, during the World War II period, there was a lot of effort to teach trades there, partially for the war effort. And a lot of the manufacturers in the city wanted to see this expanded. And so Lansing Community College was sort of created to fill this need, if you will, in the mid-20th century, to create a skilled workforce that didn't necessarily need to go to MSU and get a college degree, but still needed post-high school skills. And so they started off just a few classes, and eventually it evolved into what it is today, where you can not only get still that technical training, but you can also, through partnerships with universities, get a 4-year degree in some subjects. And throughout the course of that, the footprint of campus has changed, and it's changed downtown.
It has.
There used to be a lot of businesses, for example, that went all the way down Washington and all the way down Capitol was actually a residential neighborhood where LCC is today. And a lot of people who have moved to the city in the last 20, 30 years don't really realize that, I think. So it's been a major transition. But on the other hand, it's something that brings a lot of people downtown.
Who's going to host the tour?
David Swick, who is with the history department here at LCC, he has sort of made this his mission to decipher the history of the college.
Okay.
And so he's going to be doing both the lecture at 11:45, which is open to the public, and then also the walking tour at 1. This is this Saturday coming up, June 6th.
Where will people meet?
We're going to be meeting in the Arts and Sciences building. I believe it's room 108, if I remember correctly.
Where is Arts and Sciences? Do you know?
Arts and Sciences is right on Shiawassee.
Okay.
So.
It's right far from where we are now.
Right behind this building.
Yep. And we will have signage out in front directing people in.
There was just an article by Robert Reich about how community colleges have changed so much over the years. Maybe they need to think about going back to becoming a bit more technical. So we'll see whether that happens or not. The one thing I like about the sculptures that they put in from LCC, they're much larger than the ones they put at MSU. I'm really surprised. I go to the vet clinic periodically, and somebody said, "Have you seen the statue of the horse?" The statue of the horse is like 18 inches tall. I mean, it's
I had the same reaction because I expected a full-size
Me
horse.
too. I was
Right.
thinking like,
You've seen the polar bear.
yes, over there, that side.
That's right. I mean,
Which would be
Yeah.
terribly politically incorrect today.
yes.
And the stitching is coming loose on the polar bear. I hate to tell you this, it's kind of grim.
It's like, what, 10 foot maybe?
Yeah, he
Yes.
is.
It's gigantic. I remember, kind of told me what I didn't need to know about college.
And what's coming up?
Our second walking tour for June is going to be on the 18th, which is a Thursday evening. We'll be meeting at 7 o'clock down at Christ Lutheran Church, which is on the corner of Michigan and Pennsylvania. And we're going to be talking about the eastward growth of the city of Lansing on East Michigan Avenue. So we'll be visiting a couple churches. We'll be going to Christ Lutheran. We'll be going to Resurrection Church. And also we'll be going to Fabiano's, the wonderful candy store. And we'll also be talking about Sparrow Hospital and how everything sort of started. There's this march in history. You have Lansing going eastward, you have East Lansing and the college slowly coming westward, and it all sort of comes together on Michigan Avenue. And
Where everybody
it's really
gets
a
sick and
bridge.
goes to Sparrow.
Exactly. And of course, sometimes you don't have a historic building. I mean, Sparrow is this, that, and the other thing that's
Right.
evolved over the years. But the history of the organization itself is still incredibly important to Lansing. So even though there's not a historic structure where we can all go, oh, look how pretty, it's still a vital part of the community. And even the fact that when Sparrow Hospital was built, the fact that that's the part of the city that was growing. So that's where they purchased the land. That's where they put the hospital in all these decades ago. I think is telling.
Who does that tour?
That tour is going to be done by John Folkers, who is actually a retired minister and a volunteer down at the State Capitol building. He does guided tours there.
What happens if it rains? Do you have a rain date? Do you just drench people if there's a tornado warning?
We kind of leave that up to the tour guide to some extent.
Okay.
If it's drizzly and the tour guide's still willing to go out, we can shuttle up and down the streets with our umbrellas.
All right.
If it's a downpour, we're not going to do it. But if it's just a very light rain, and if there are still people there who are interested and the guide's willing, we'll go for it.
Okay. Event number 3.
Event number 3 on the... I have to check my calendar, the 11th.
You've got so many events, I'm surprised you can keep them straight.
The 11th is also a Thursday evening. We're going to be going down to the Library of Michigan. And
That's
we
a
are,
beautiful place.
Yes, it is. And we are working with the Library of Michigan on an event talking about John Hermann, who is one of Lansing's better known authors, or should be a better known author from
The
Lansing.
most forgotten author.
And the most censored?
He
What
would
do you
probably
mean?
be the only censored author
The
from
only
Lansing,
censored,
right?
ah.
He had a book band.
Yeah, that's what's being the
80
reason for the talk. Is
Right,
he-
89 years ago, he had a book band that was never published in this country.
And now it will be.
Yes, it will.
And so we will be talking about that. Will we get to read the salacious parts?
It's hardly salacious compared to
Yeah.
today's
That's
writing.
probably true.
But you couldn't mention anything back then that had to do with sex, prostitution, anything of that nature.
Well, we learned the other day that you can't read Allen Ginsberg in a high school class. So I mean, we're still a bit backward in those areas. But
Right.
what's this event going to be? Where and what? And
This will be at the Library of Michigan on June 11th at 7 o'clock. And Dr. Sarah Kosiva, who's been doing research on John Hermann for years, is coming up to do the event. And I'm very interested to see what she has to say about what this book tells about John Hermann's early life, because it's the first full book he wrote, correct, Bill?
Right, and it's very autobiographical.
Yes.
is this about his expatriate years? And
No,
we-
this is
before
about
that.
a young man sowing his wild oats around Lansing.
Oh,
Successfully.
Yes, quite successfully.
How does one measure success in that regard?
Well, on the first page, he talks about a big belly.
Oh, I see.
Pregnant young woman.
That was not an era where that was a good thing necessarily.
No.
No.
No. So that's going to be interesting.
Yes. I will be very curious to see if there are, any faces that redden slightly that we realize the family connection to or something along the way.
Oh, did Mr. Hermann depart this earth?
Well, he died in the 1950s, but this
59.
would have been almost 100 years ago when he was running around Lansing. So any of those big bellies would be
Are
long
definitely
gone
gone.
at this point in time.
But offspring could be in the
But
audience?
there could be. There could be. One never knows.
Knowingly or unknowingly?
Yes.
That'll be interesting. Well, that's going to be an
He's
interesting
a fascinating writer. Today I was talking to somebody from WUOM Radio who also saw the parallels between his book and J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye.
Ah.
Except she said, it's better than Catcher in the Rye.
Wow.
It really is a young man's story, and
Coming of age kind of thing.
it's very much a coming-of-age story of you can tell he's quite intellectual. He went to Washington, D.C. John Hermann actually did when he was 19 and worked in the press corps.
Wow.
And
Well, that sounds like a great program.
And this is the first time the book will ever be published in the U.S.
Yeah.
It was published in France, and
Right.
it was burned at the docks in New York. So
Was it a
this
Grove
is-
Press?
No, it wasn't. It's a very small press, Contact Editions, but they had published Hemingway, they had published Gertrude Stein and a couple others. I think it was targeted because of that. It was a Paris publisher. And
Yeah.
Paris gave people the impression it was naughty to start with.
Right.
But John never wavered, and he didn't rewrite the book.
Good going.
And he took it to
Stuck by
court.
his principles.
He took it to court, so he was the first case taken to court in the United States on censorship.
Wow.
What was it? Ulysses didn't go to court
Yeah.
until like 37
Right.
and win. The same attorney that represented John Hermann, Morris Ernst, lost the case
Wow.
with John, but won it with Ulysses.
Amazing.
And then it was after that. 37 was when Hemingway's To Have and Have Not
Yeah.
was banned in the city of Detroit, and the same attorney represented.
Wow.
So he became the attorney that was the default attorney for representing obscenity. He was one of the co-founders of the ACLU. So there's amazing
what a rich
there's
backstory.
amazing backstories in this, and some of the letters that you'll read from between Hemingway and Herman are both hilarious, touching. They jest with each other. Herman let him have his suits when he was done with them.
Wow.
So a suit from Lansing, Michigan, was on the back of Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, that's
And
great.
everybody thinks Hemingway was a big man. John Herman was 6'3", and he was larger than Hemingway. He was
Hemingway,
taller,
yeah.
probably not
Yeah.
as bulky.
Burley, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
There's just some fabulous stories.
And event number 4.
And event number 4 is Thursday the 25th. We will be down at Lansing City Hall. This is our last event in conjunction with our Lansing Goes to War exhibit that is currently on display in City Hall. The event will be focusing on Holling C. Holling, who is best known as a children's author and illustrator. Won a Caldecott Honor Award for Paddle to the Sea back in the 1950s. And interestingly, he also did some propaganda art during World War II. So it's interesting to see how even an artist is being pulled into the war effort one way or the other.
Yes.
Not a traditional soldier that we would think of necessarily.
Sounds like 4 fascinating events.
They're definitely different.
Yes.
So if people want to go to your website, what do they go to in order to keep all of these straight?
They go to lansinghistory.org. You can
Alright.
find a listing of all of our June events there. You can also send an email to info@lansinghistory.org if you would like to be put on our email list and receive notifications about these. Finally, we are also on Facebook. You can look us up there.
Wonderful. This is Matt. Marvelous. This is going to be a fun summer.